should concealed carry permit holders be allowed to go into schools and government buildings? And our guests who are on the radio show this evening, J.W. Fairman, who is manager and director of public safety for Sauk Village, and Boca Delano, who is village manager, University Park, and our old friend, John Howard, who is with the U.S. Investigation Protective Agency, and of course, Gretchen and I. And so the question becomes, we have a very interesting group of people here, because the question that we're going to ask is going to be addressed by somebody who grew up in the South, where it was a very different mindset in terms of firearm ownership, and someone from Great Britain, and John, who is a fugitive recovery guy. And so we got a lot of things. Gretchen was state, and you just wrote something on my card.
Yeah, you could read your own handwriting.
I can't read my own handwriting. You're right. That's right. So the question is, if you're a law-abiding citizen and you have a concealed carry permit, do we want you to be able to carry a firearm in a school or in government buildings? Everybody points to JW. That's interesting. It's just one tournament, right? Yeah.
I got to be honest with you. I have mixed feelings about that. I think that schools should be able to have some kind of protection given what's going on in the country with weapons. But people walking in and out, I got to be honest with you, I have a problem with that right now. It would have to be studied a little bit more. Talk about regulating it now, especially in the large urban areas. Even in the South, people carry weapons. In school. In government buildings, because of acrimony, with things that go on, like the people that are representing the face of the government that are carrying out stuff like Social Security, you're going to have people in there arguing about that. I got a little bit of concern about that,
We know a judge whose name I won't mention, but we were at a fundraiser summer when she said this. I'm sorry, Keith. Oh, no, it was at an ISRA meeting. And he's a criminal judge, criminal court. And he said the longest walk in his life is from the parking lot to the front door of the court because he can't carry a gun. And he goes, there are a lot of bad guys out there who really don't like me, and I'm totally vulnerable from my car. And apparently, he's got like the cheap seat parking lot is across the street. He says it's a long walk.
Well, that's different than, I'm thinking of John Q. Public.
No, I understand.
I understand judges, it's like Judge Roy beat in the movie. I understand they have to make tough decisions, and sometimes I don't see a problem with them having to be able to arm themselves if they're walking that kind of way by themselves. But, the average John Q. citizen carrying gun, I have a real concern about that. Because those agencies are providing services to people, some of who are not appreciative of the services they're providing, because they may be the people that perpetrated some crime. And on the other hand, they may not have gotten the satisfaction that some worker is doing in Social Security or whatever. I don't think that's a good idea in my mind.
John, you're shaking your head.
Yeah, I'm okay with it to a certain extent. Okay, training, and you have to have the right mindset in the school to be able to stop a threat. And knowing that if you stop a threat, it could be deadly. You're using deadly force. So I'm not saying every teacher needs to be armed, or every principal or gym teacher, everyone that there needs to be armed. I'm saying that, like I said before, we have armed personnel in jewelry stores. We have them in some of the grocery stores. We have them in banks, but we don't have them in the schools, where schools are considered a soft target for people who want their name remembered long after they're buried or they're deceased. So they go there, they do something stupid like what we've been hearing about, and then we are forced to remember their names over and over and over again. But we don't remember the names of the people that you talk about. So I say, if they go through the proper training, if they want to do it, they have the proper mindset, and they know what they're getting. And I'm not talking about just a standard CCW course. I'm talking about one that shows blunt trauma, a course that shows what blunt trauma does to the body, and that person has a mindset and they're prepared to do that, to defend.
Maybe even like active shooter training.
Right, some active shooter training.
Well,
so they have the mindset to do so. That's
well, but you're talking about maybe some employee. I don't have a problem with that.
You're talking about John Q. Public.
When you say conceal, you said the question, as I understood, what did I think about people with concealed carry coming into schools or public? That's different. If you're talking about trying to protect the schools, there's a lot of things they could do in terms of having armed people in there. I don't That's different than anybody walking in, a parent
But here-
walking in.
Okay, if someone is carrying concealed, they're carrying. If they can do harm, they can do harm if they made that conscious decision, because all these people, we can't stop them with laws, we can't stop them with rules. If they make the conscious decision to do harm in that way, then they're going to do it. They'll do it with a knife. A person used a knife to stab 26 kids in another country.
China.
In China.
Yeah.
That was China. When the person makes that decision, if a person does not have that intent to make that decision, if you're concealed carry, children go to the mall. Okay, they're at the mall, they're on the playground, they're in public areas. It's not going to change very much if you're going into a school. A school has is more densely populated with children, but there are children everywhere. So if you're allowed to, if you're licensed to carry, that's saying that's state government.
If you look at the statistic, this is, I think the bottom line is this, and I don't mean to disagree with you, but here's the bottom line. Utah has allowed concealed carry. I'm JW. Utah has allowed concealed carry holders to carry in a school. Okay, Utah. There's never, ever been anybody who's gone into a Utah school and shot it up. Never. Now, I will readily admit Utah isn't populated as Chicago. I understand, and there are issues about that. But the statistic is very clear. You can carry a concealed firearm into school. Nobody has ever tried to shoot the school up.
I would like to take a different perspective. So earlier on, you mentioned that you shoot to stop a threat.
Yes.
Yes.
So as a mother, hypothetically, kids are in school and somebody comes in. I would be, as a mother, if a teacher or one of the teachers has gone through the training and has been given the opportunity to have a gun in, to walk into school, I wouldn't have a problem if she uses that gun at that particular time to stop the threat. So it's a double whammy in the sense that we have laws that say they can't take guns into schools, meaning, but on the other hand, we're exposed to a culture right now where we have people within our communities who actually go to public places, as you said, to shoot. For some reason, whether it gives them a thrill, we don't know, or whether they want their names to be remembered, we don't know. So the question, turning it back on the other hand, is how do we control people who get a license for a gun and are not allowed to have a gun? How do we control them from going into public places to do those kinds of shootings? The other thing is, this is me just talking as, this is partly because I'm not a public enforcement person, but the other side of it is, as a mother, if I know that there's a trend, which it seems to be across the nation where people are going to public places, cinemas and schools to shoot, if the auditor or the janitor has a concealed gun carry license and is in the vicinity at the time, and he is in a position to protect the audience, if it's a theater, or the students in the school, I wouldn't object to it. But I don't really know how we can actually.
I am, because see, in a mall and out in the street, people can disperse. In a school, it's a really kind of a closed environment.
Like a cave.
Well, that's why you got to be concerned about when you use force in those type of areas, similar to prison, because people they can only go so many different directions. Now, if you're talking about, does the school need to have some armed personnel in there that are trained and understand that they can't, in this type of environment, how to do it? That's different. But if you're talking about just because somebody's walking in off the street, a parent, I have a problem with that. I mean, I just got to tell you. I mean, if you want to do something differently, I mean, I think you can do something differently. But just to have anybody with concealed carry coming in where my kid is, I have a problem.
What about a government?
I was going to say, I have a different feeling about that, and I really feel the same way. I mean, I don't have kids, so maybe somebody who has kids can make a salient point about that, but I don't really see the difference between any public place that chooses to put up a no gun sign, no concealed carry sign, or a school that doesn't allow concealed carry guns. I have been checked 4 times, Okay, I've been checked by the FBI, I've been checked by the state police, I've been checked by Will County. My background has been run by all these different law enforcement agencies. And they have said, yes, she has a clean criminal record, she is okay to have concealed carry. So I don't understand why that's not good enough for either a school or a public place to say, yeah, actually we do want you here because actually you do make us safer.
Well, yeah, I understand, like in Mississippi, they have a standard concealed carry, and then they have what's called an enhanced concealed carry.
I didn't know that.
And an enhanced concealed carry, you can go into the schools and the public buildings.
Is
because
Mississippi?
you have Mississippi.
I was not aware.
Yeah, enhanced concealed carry will allow you to go into the government facilities. A standard concealed carry, no, because there's a level of training that you don't have, because you have to know what's beyond your target. And standard concealed carry courses, they're not taught what's beyond that. So you're thinking if someone has a firearm and they're in a pen and you see a target and there's something beyond that target, it happens to be a child, then that's a concern. So I guess they have to have that proper mindset. That's why I said mindset and training.
Yeah, I would say this. I was an auxiliary deputy. So we were sworn, got the body armor, carried the gun, got the free donut at Dunkin' Donuts, didn't get paid. Okay? Now, as an auxiliary deputy, when I was on duty, I carried a gun, drove around a patrol car, did what I did. Most of the time in uniform. But if I was going to go and refuel my car, I was wearing blue jeans, just put a gun and a badge on. Okay? If I'm off duty, just change that status. Suddenly, I'm not safe enough to carry a gun on the street. Where was the logic of that? If I could do it wearing blue jeans and a t-shirt out on the street to get my car refueled, how is it when I go home suddenly I'm a homicidal maniac? It makes no sense.
Yes, and I brought this up because
I'm missing that part where you're making it.
Well, what I'm saying is, I went through you go through the training. They do it locally because we had grown-up jobs, we used to call them.
Mm-hmm.
I carry a gun when I worked for the county.
Auxiliary?
Uniform.
Yeah. Okay. So I had my own patrol car. Some of us got a patrol car. I was a sergeant.
Yeah.
I'm fine. But if I'm off duty, oh no, you couldn't carry a gun. Am I a different person?
Well,
yeah, that's not something like armed security officers.
Exactly.
You know.
well, that's I don't understand that. If they're gonna have you carry, if you're a police officer, your arrest power, that's illogical to me. But so that's not the common issue that we're talking about as it relates to school.
But here's my point.
Okay.
The point is, if I were in uniform, I could go into a school carrying a gun.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the same person. I haven't changed.
You can't legislate common sense.
Well, and there it is.
It's impossible.
Well,
there's no legislation that says I hereby common sense you. It's on the books now. And we talked about the Safe Act card.
Mm-hmm.
If I was unarmed in New York on the train,
Mm-hmm.
and two men and a woman approached me, so we'd like that watch, we want it. And I pulled out, oh no, you can't. I got that Safe Act card.
I beg your pardon?
I got the Safe Act. So because I pulled that card out, they're going to say, oh man, I really want that watch.
Oh,
I'm gonna because when these laws are passed, they make it seem as if okay, now you're safe. The people in the schools are safe. I'm going to tell you something, and I know a lot of different people all over the United States, from East Coast to West Coast. Some of the lawmakers have their children in schools. Personnel is armed. You can't get within 100 feet of that school.
Yeah.
Period. And these are media folks and other people in different areas that we've trained in upstate New York. Okay. And they are able to get the New York.
They can afford it.
Well,
exactly. And their children are protected in that school.
I understand that, but it's a difference when you're talking about if you're on a train where, with somebody in there, and the adult most likely, if it's at night or day, whatever, by themselves, than being in it where a school. I'm saying that Mississippi did this enhanced training for a reason.
Yeah.
I'm saying the same thing. So that's my concern is that anyone, you said the question was posed as, What happens if, can a concealed person, and I took that to mean anybody with concealed weapon, be able to walk into school? I have a problem with that.
Right, because you're thinking that they're not equipped enough to handle a situation because they have a concealed carry. That part, I understand that. I understand that. They may not be mentally equipped to do it, or they may panic and rush.
No. Here's what I'm talking about. This is a controlled environment. You know, you got kids in there.
Yes.
You know, when you get ready to, you know, like if you're in that place, you got to know how to deal with weapons in those kind of environments. Yeah. I'm talking about with people in the hall, you know.
I understand.
I
understand. But so my question to you is, because when I moved to the United States, I was shocked that every school had these metal detectors to go in. And despite the metal detectors, people are still bringing guns into schools. So my question is, we can talk about people not moving in or whatever and all these measures. The fact still remains that guns are getting into schools, which is why we're having these disasters. So my question would be, or rather my comment would be, since that is a kind of a culture, what is stopping, what are we doing to even stop it, one? But two, people who now have a right to carry a gun can be a teacher in the school and protect children, because people, you know, the authorities will know that we have some people who are skilled or trained or whatever to protect the children on the other side. But the double whammy is that people are still, I mean, I know you're protective about the children issue, which I am too, but the system as it is right now, people are still walking into the schools despite all this armor thing, and they're carrying guns into the school. How do we deal with it?
Well, you know what? You know, see, I don't. You know, when you start talking about, I'm not gonna get into why they get into school, because you can have all the equipment, but if the personnel is not paying attention, that's all I'll say. But
I just asked the question.
I'm just gonna ask the question as diplomatically as I possibly could. So that's not the issue. But if you're talking about protecting the kids in their closed environment, see, people, there's a difference in closed environment, you know, like shooting up, like in the hallways of kids. You know, I mean, if you have to,
it's increased pressure.
And no, but you have to, you have to know how to do that. Sure. I mean, when people,
I understand that.
That's what I'm saying. So if you got teachers in there,
you're taking it another level.
Yeah,
I'm talking just basic, because you're in law enforcement. You're giving me all this theoretical thing of enclosed environment. That's fine, but Mr. Joe Bloggs doesn't get that. So the question is, if Mr. Bloggs or Mrs. Bloggs has 2 children in school, and they for some reason are made aware or not made aware that 2 teachers in the school can protect their children should a crisis arise, is that right or is that wrong? Would they want it or don't they want it?
See, we're not arguing about that. We're talking about, you're saying people are, especially if they're going to be in the school like they do in Mississippi, they're especially trained on how to deal with that kind of shooting in there. I'm talking about, we get into the specific areas when the question was general. What do you think about carrying concealed weapons inside of school? We didn't say specific personnel in school. I don't have a problem with that. You know, that there's an issue there, because those people will have to be trained on how to deal with that weapon in a school. That's a whole different situation.
Now I got to say something. Did you want to say something real quick? Last thing.
Yeah, okay. I have a question from you two, because the 3 of us work in government buildings, okay? And we're not allowed to carry, as employees, we're not allowed to carry in government buildings either. Now, I don't know if you all, you're not elected, right? Okay. So I don't know if you all feel the same way that I do about this, but I know that sometimes I'm very uncomfortable with the fact that I can't arm myself when I go into that building, because I may be targeted as an elected official. People don't like the way I vote on things. They don't like the way the laws that we make. And I could, you know, and we've actually had people, you know, spout off and say things and actually make threats, and just verbal threats, but threats nonetheless. And we're disarmed. And there is 1 deputy in the chamber with us, okay? And so, you know, I think the judges should be able to carry. I would like to be able to carry to work, you know, when I go in that government building to work, I would, and what do you guys think? I mean, do you ever feel like, I really would like
I
to
think
do
it's
that.
I think it's very interesting that all the aldermen in Chicago get that well.
And you know, most people don't know
I
that.
know
Yeah.
they don't know.
And that has been true since, I think, the 30s.
Now, you know, when you start talking about dispensing justice, you know, in certain kind of ways, that's a whole different thing. You're talking about, you know, if you're making laws that people are not happy about, that's, you know, then you got to bring that law. Why is the city of Chicago people being able to carry guns, and other people that work in those same buildings are elected officials are not?
Well,
Exactly.
as a trainer of some elected officials, and Candy Wrapper off, some of the elected officials that we have trained, well, we've asked that same question. The answer is, well, I am an elected official. I'm important.
I'm protected.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm important.
Yeah.
If you have a pulse, to me, you're important. If you're pumping blood, breathing air, you're important.
All right, so listen, we've gone on all night. This is, I gotta say something in closing. I have to say this. This has gotta be one of the most interesting ones we've done.
Yeah.
And all the more so because we have a woman from Great Britain, which is notoriously anti-gun, going, ought to have guns in schools and in buildings. And we have a guy who comes from the South that is very gun culture, going, oh, I'm not so sure about that. And this has been, I think, the liveliest discussion that we've had. I really do. And we need to bring you guys back. There's plenty of topics here that I can think of that we could do if you're willing to come back.
I'll have to sit in between these two.
We're good.
We'll have to get the mayor to come out and sit between.
No, I think it's very important.
I'll take it.
I think it's very, you know, it's interesting that you know, we're not talking about John Q. Public when you get to deal with kids. Now, you're talking about the disparity of the government. If you're a part of the government, the elected official, that's a question you'll be asking your colleagues. I mean, to me, you know, I don't see why they could carry it and nobody else could carry it.
Sure.
I don't see why the judges can't. I mean, we're in the South.
Yeah,
they
well,
can't,
it's
you
the
know?
state of Illinois. I mean, that was the law that the state of Illinois made,
Right.
and I don't like it. You know,
I'll just make
I'll
one
just
comment.
go on record saying I don't like it. Yes.
I'll just make one comment. We know that there are certain special schools, both here and abroad,
In Great Britain, okay. No pun intended.
that they do have people on the grounds with guns to protect their children.
Typically fully automatic. guns.
Fully automatic guns.
Yes.
That's what-
So,
I agree with that.
yeah. So
And
that-
you're right, I don't
so,
have a
yeah.
problem with that.
So no, I'm just saying, just generally, so we can go back and forth about whether they can be in schools or not. I'm not saying whether it's supportive or not, but what I am saying is, as a parent, a lot of parents want to make sure, especially in this violent culture, that their kids are protected from 9 to 5.
Well,
And if my teacher, I'll say it again, or my
This is on
janitor,
record too.
if my teacher or janitor, for some reason, has gone through the U.S. Investigations and Protection Agency training
Yes.
and has an opportunity to hold a gun in light of to protect the children should a problem arise.
I don't have a problem with that.
You don't have a problem?
No, I will say this much.
Everyone, one last comment.
My last comment is, I think the problem with Sandy Hook was that they didn't have anybody on their house specifically for that. If you have people specifically for the school, then I'm for that. But I'm not for John Q. Public walking in and out of
I agree.
it. That's where I am, you know, as far as that.
You're for the additional training.
Yeah, exactly.
I agree.
Specific for, yeah.
I will make, but my last comment on what you just said is this. If you put a uniform guy in a school, that's the first guy they pop.
I didn't say nothing about uniform.
Yeah, and so you see what I'm saying? Whereas.
I'll talk to you offline about uniform.
Well, yeah, okay, right. If somebody
You know
looks
what I'm
like,
talking about.
if somebody looks like.
You know what I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
no, I do. But this whole thing to me matters because I was standing in line at a Jewel. This is 10 years ago. But I was standing in line at a Jewel, and the guy ahead of me, a very large guy ahead of me, was somebody that 5 of us wrestled to the ground about 4 years before. And I reckon because he's one eye in the middle of his forehead, dragging his hands on the ground. And fortunately, he didn't recognize me. Now, if he'd have recognized me, he could have broken my neck right there in the line at Jewel, and I had no way to protect myself. There's something weird about that, okay?
Well, it's weird is walking down the street of Chicago and somebody say warden. That's happened when I was working on it as the head of.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that, and then if they say director, that means in jail.
It's a different place. Yeah.
You know, you understand what I'm saying? As jail director, then you got like warden.
I do.
I was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
You know?
You're it. Last one. Last word. Anything?
Oh, I already said that.
Said your piece.
I would like to be able to carry when I'm working in the county building.
Okay. All right. So it's been a very interesting, discussion for segment 6.
Absolutely.
And I thank you all for being here. I truly do. And we would like to have you back because this has been a very spirited discussion. And thank you, John, for doing that.
Thank you.
Getting us
Thank you for
together.
having us. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
That'll be segment 6 for this week. Longer than usual, but I think spirited and a great debate.
Mayor Covington and Hank.
That would be nice.